catching dust motes in golden streams as Leah Cortez wiped down the espresso machine for the third time that hour. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, the kind that came from years of service work, from knowing that excellence was the only currency that mattered when your reputation preceded you like a warning label. She was 27 years old and had been managing this cafe in Chicago's Little Italy for 8 months. What she didn't know was that the cafe belonged to Vincent Kane, one of the most powerful men in the city's underworld. What she did know was that the pay was better than anywhere else she'd worked. The owner never showed his face, and questions weren't encouraged. The neighborhood knew her, though. They always did. Whispers followed her down the street like stray cats, persistent and impossible to shake. There she goes. Trouble. That Cortez girl. Her brother owes money all over town. Didn't she get arrested a few years back? I heard she saw that shooting on Mulberry Street and wouldn't talk to the cops. Smart or stupid, hard to say. Leah had learned to hold her head high despite it all. The arrest at 19 had been for receiving stolen goods, covering for a friend who'd vanished the moment handcuffs appeared. The shooting she'd witnessed 6 months ago was gang violence she wanted no part of. Talking to police in this neighborhood was a death sentence. And Tommy, her 23-year-old brother, well, his deaths were his own disaster, though they had a way of becoming hers, too. She lived 3 blocks away in a modest apartment, the kind with thin walls and a radiator that clanked through winter nights. It wasn't much, but it was hers, paid for with her own money. No one's charity or pity involved. The cafe door chimed. Leah glanced up to see 2 men she recognized vaguely, the kind who loitered outside the betting shop on the corner. They ordered espresso, paid in crumpled bills, and left. Tension she hadn't realized she was carrying eased from her shoulders. What she didn't see was the man in the black town car parked across the street, watching through tinted windows. Vincent Kane had been observing her for 3 weeks now, ever since Sal Marino, his consigliere, mentioned that the cafe manager was exceptional. Efficient, loyal to her staff, never skimmed from the register. In Vincent's world, such qualities were rare enough to warrant attention. He saw more than competence, though. He saw the way she handled a drunk customer with firm dignity, the way she walked home alone at night with keys between her fingers, the way her smile for regulars was genuine despite the weight she clearly carried. She intrigued him in ways he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. Vincent Kane was 34, with black hair threaded with premature silver at the temples, and eyes the color of glacial ice. He'd inherited his father's empire at 29, and had spent the last 5 years consolidating power, eliminating rivals, and building something that looked legitimate on the surface. Beneath, of course, was another matter entirely. The call came on a Thursday evening as Leah was closing up. Her phone buzzed, Tommy's name flashing on the screen with the particular dread it always inspired. Leah, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. His voice cracked with panic. They're saying 3 days. They're gonna hurt you if I don't pay. I didn't think they were serious, but how much, Tommy? She kept her voice steady, though her stomach dropped. $12,000. The number hit like a physical blow. 12,000. She had maybe 800 in savings. Who? He gave her names. A loan shark operation that worked the South Side. Small time but vicious. The kind who made examples. Stay where you are, she told him. Don't do anything stupid. She hung up and stood in the empty cafe, her reflection ghostly in the darkened windows. Then she made a decision that was either brave or suicidal. She wasn't sure which. The loan sharks operated out of a social club that was really just a front for their business. Leah found them in the alley behind it the next evening, 3 men passing around a flask and laughing about something cruel. Gentlemen, her voice cut through their conversation. We need to talk about my brother's debt. The largest one, a man with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, grinned. Tommy's sister. Heard about you. Here to pay? Here to negotiate. She pulled out her phone, thumb hovering over the record button. You've been charging 30% interest on a loan that started at $4,000. That's illegal even by street standards. I'm recording this conversation. Touch me, and it goes to 5 different people with instructions to forward it if I don't check in. It was a bluff. She had no such system. But her hand was steady, her gaze unwavering. Scarface stepped closer, and Leah's heart hammered so loud she was sure they could hear it. That's cute, sweetheart. Real cute. But Tommy's got 3 days, and if you don't pay, you're going to learn about interest in ways you won't like. Is that a threat? She raised the phone slightly. It's a promise. The voice that cut through the alley was low, controlled, and absolutely glacial. Gentlemen, I believe the lady asked you a question. Vincent Kane stepped from the shadows like something conjured from darker intentions. He wore a tailored suit that probably cost more than Leah's annual rent, and the 2 men flanking him radiated the kind of violence that didn't need to be spoken. The loan sharks recognized him instantly. Scarface actually took a step back. Mr. Kane, we didn't know she was with you. She wasn't. Vincent's gaze flicked to Leah briefly, assessing, before returning to the men. But she is now. The debt Tommy Cortez owes you is paid as of this moment. He nodded to one of his men, who stepped forward with a thick envelope. 12,000, plus an additional 3 for your trouble. Consider this matter closed. Scarface took the envelope with shaking hands. Yes, sir, absolutely. Closed. And gentlemen? Vincent's smile didn't reach his eyes. The Cortez family is under my protection now. If I hear you've been anywhere near them, anywhere near this neighborhood, we'll have a different kind of conversation. Am I clear? Crystal, Mr. Kane. They left quickly, practically stumbling over themselves. Leah stood frozen, adrenaline still screaming through her veins, phone clutched uselessly in her hand. Vincent turned to her, and up close, she could see the sharp angles of his face, the faint shadow of stubble, the way his eyes catalogued everything about her in seconds. That was either very brave or very foolish, Miss Cortez. Probably both. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Thank you, but I need to know the price. His expression shifted slightly, something almost like approval. Smart. Walk with me. They left the alley, his men keeping discreet distance. Vincent led her to a small park 2 blocks away, empty at this hour except for distant traffic sounds. I own Romano's Cafe, he said without preamble, along with 4 other restaurants, 2 more cafes, and several laundromats in this area. I need someone to manage all of them, someone competent and trustworthy. You've proven the first, and loyalty to family suggests the second. Leah processed this carefully. What's the salary? $7,500 a month. Your brother's debt is paid regardless. What I'm asking for in return is your loyalty and your discretion. It was more money than she'd ever made. Enough to build actual savings, to stop living one emergency away from catastrophe. I'd be working for you. Yes, and you're Vincent Kane. She said his name deliberately, showing she knew exactly who he was. I am. The kind of man who makes people disappear. The kind of man who protects what's his and doesn't tolerate betrayal. His gaze held hers. I'm not asking you to be involved in anything illegal. These businesses are legitimate. I'm asking you to run them well and keep your eyes on your own work. Leah thought of Tommy, of the years of scraping by, of being called trouble everywhere she went. She thought of the cafe she'd poured herself into, not knowing it was already his. I need 48 hours to consider. Vincent reached into his jacket, produced a card with only a phone number. Call when you decide. As he walked away, Leah stood in the empty park, card burning in her pocket, and wondered if she'd just been offered salvation or sold her soul. She spent 2 days asking careful questions. Vincent Kane was feared, yes, but respected. He didn't allow heavy drug trafficking in his territory, protected local businesses from outside extortion, took care of families when his men fell. He was dangerous, but he had rules. On the second evening, she called the number. I accept, she said when he answered. When do I start? There was a pause. Then his voice, warmer than before. Monday. Welcome aboard, Miss Cortez. Leah hung up and looked around her tiny apartment, at the life she'd built from nothing. She was about to step into a much larger world, one that didn't forgive mistakes. But for the first time in years, she felt something that might have been hope. Monday morning arrived with unseasonable warmth, the kind that made Chicago feel almost optimistic. Leah stood outside a 3-story building in Little Italy, its ground floor housing Marcello's, one of Vincent's restaurants. The address he'd given her led to a door beside the main entrance, unmarked except for a brass number plate. She climbed narrow stairs to the second floor, where a broad-shouldered man in his mid-40s waited outside an office door. His gray hair was immaculately combed, his suit understated but expensive. "Miss Cortez, Sal Marino." He extended a hand, his grip firm but not aggressive. "I'm Mr. Kane's consigliere. I'll be showing you the operations today." "Consigliere," Leah repeated, testing the word. "Advisor?" Something like that. His smile was genuine, crinkling the corners of his eyes. "Come in. We have a lot to cover." The office was surprisingly modest. A desk, filing cabinets, a worn leather couch, and walls lined with photographs of the neighborhood spanning decades. Sal gestured for her to sit and produced a stack of ledgers. "These are the books for all legitimate operations. 5 restaurants, 3 cafes, 2 laundromats. You'll have full access to accounts, authority to hire and fire staff, and discretion over operational decisions." He paused meaningfully. "Mr. Kane values results and honesty. Provide both, and you'll find him very generous." Leah opened the first ledger, scanning entries. Her practiced eye caught issues immediately. Overpriced suppliers, inconsistent inventory tracking, staffing redundancies. When was the last time someone audited these? 2 years ago, maybe longer. Sal shrugged. "Mr. Kane's attention has been elsewhere. I can see that." She made notes on a pad Sal provided. "I'll need direct contact information for all managers and suppliers, and I want to visit every location this week." Already prepared. He handed her a folder thick with documents. "Mr. Kane thought you might." Over the next 2 weeks, Leah immersed herself completely. She visited each business, introduced herself to staff, observed operations with a critical eye. The waste she uncovered was staggering. A cafe throwing out 40 pounds of pastries daily because the baker made too much. A restaurant paying twice market rate for produce because no one had renegotiated contracts in years. She started making changes, small at first, testing her authority. When no one countermanded her decisions, she grew bolder. She fired a manager skimming from registers, consolidated supply orders to leverage bulk discounts, implemented inventory systems that reduced waste by 30%. Vincent watched from a distance, receiving weekly reports from Sal. "She's cut costs by $18,000 in 2 weeks," Sal told him over coffee in the same office where Leah now worked most days. "Staff actually like her. She's fair, but doesn't tolerate laziness." "Good." Vincent stared out the window at the street below. "She settling in? Keeps her head down, doesn't ask questions about other business." "Smart woman." Vincent had kept away deliberately, wanting Leah to establish herself without his shadow, but he found himself thinking about her more than was wise. The focused expression she wore when reviewing numbers, the way she'd face down loan sharks with nothing but courage and a bluff. Tommy appeared at the office on a Thursday afternoon, fidgeting nervously until Leah finished a phone call with a linen supplier. "I need to thank him," Tommy said without preamble. "Mr. Kane. He paid my debt, got me out of that mess. I can't just pretend it didn't happen." Leah studied her brother, seeing the shame in his posture. Tommy had always been impulsive, making mistakes that she had to fix. But there was genuine remorse in his eyes now. "All right. I'll ask if he'll see us." Vincent agreed to meet them that evening. Leah brought Tommy to the office, where Vincent sat behind the desk, an open file before him. He looked up as they entered, his gaze moving from Leah to her brother with clinical assessment. "Mr. Kane," Tommy's voice cracked slightly. "I wanted to thank you personally, sir. What you did, paying off those men, I know I don't deserve it. I've been an idiot, and my sister's paid for my mistakes her whole life. I just wanted you to know I'm grateful. And I'm trying to be better." Vincent leaned back in his chair, silent for a long moment. Then, "You work, Tommy?" "I cook, sir. Line cook, mostly. Worked at a diner on the south side until they closed last month. Marcello's needs a kitchen assistant. Pay is $15 an hour to start. More if you prove yourself. Show up on time, work hard, stay out of trouble. Interested?" Tommy's eyes widened. "Yes, sir. Absolutely. I won't let you down. You'll be letting your sister down if you do. She's the one I care about disappointing." Vincent's tone was mild, but the warning was clear. "Start Monday." After Tommy left, practically floating with relief, Leah lingered. You didn't have to do that. I need reliable people. If your brother's serious about changing, he'll have the opportunity. If not, he'll be gone within a month. Vincent stood, moving to the window. You're doing excellent work, by the way. Sal says the books haven't looked this good in years. There's still a lot to fix. Leah joined him at the window, maintaining careful distance. But it's satisfying work. Real work. That's all you want? Satisfying work? She glanced at him, caught off guard by the question. It's more than I've had before. So yes, it's enough. Their eyes met, and something charged passed between them, a current neither acknowledged. Vincent broke the moment first, turning back to his desk. Keep up the excellent work, Miss Cortez. It was a dismissal, professional and clear. Leah left, but the feeling lingered. The following week, on a Wednesday afternoon, Leah was deep in spreadsheets when the office door burst open. A small blonde tornado in a school uniform rushed in, backpack bouncing against her shoulders. Daddy, Mrs. Morrison said you were picking me up, but you forgot, and I waited forever and... The girl stopped abruptly, noticing Leah at the desk. Oh, who are you? Vincent appeared in the doorway seconds later, tension visible in his jaw. He never brought Grace here, never mixed his daughter with any aspect of the business, not even the legitimate parts. Behind him, an older woman in sensible shoes looked mortified. Mr. Kane, I'm so sorry. She ran from the car before I could... It's fine, Mrs. Morrison. Vincent's voice was controlled, but Leah heard the edge beneath. Grace, this is Miss Cortez. She works with me. Miss Cortez, my daughter, Grace. Leah crouched to the girl's eye level, smiling. Hi, Grace. 8 years old? How did you know? Grace's suspicion melted into curiosity. Your dad mentioned you once. Said you liked drawing. Grace's face lit up. I love drawing. Do you draw? Not very well, but I try. Leah stood, glancing at Vincent, who watched the interaction with an expression she couldn't quite read. Your dad and I were just finishing up. You two should get home. Vincent nodded curtly. Grace, say goodbye. Bye, Miss Cortez. You're really pretty. Grace waved enthusiastically as Mrs. Morrison shepherded her out. Alone again, Vincent exhaled slowly. I apologize. She's not supposed to come here. She's lovely. Leah kept her tone neutral, professional. You're lucky. Something softened in his face. I am. He hesitated then. My wife, Elena, died 3 years ago. Cancer. Grace was 5. She asks about her mother sometimes, but mostly she just seems lonely. Babysitters and housekeepers aren't the same as family. The vulnerability in his admission startled Leah. This was Vincent Kane, a man who commanded fear and respect in equal measure, suddenly just a father worried about his daughter. I'm sorry for your loss, Leah said quietly. Grace seems resilient, though. That's a credit to you. Or to her mother's strength, passed down. Vincent straightened, the professional mask sliding back into place. Grace asked if you could have dinner with us sometime. It's unusual, and I understand if you'd prefer to keep boundaries. When? The word escaped before Leah could reconsider. Friday evening? Leah knew it was a mistake, knew that crossing from professional to personal with Vincent Kane was dangerous territory. But she'd seen the hope in Grace's bright blue eyes, the loneliness Vincent tried to hide. Friday works, she agreed. Vincent's smile was subtle but genuine. 7 o'clock. I'll have Sal send you the address. As Leah gathered her things to leave that evening, she wondered what exactly she was stepping into. Business was one thing. Dinner with a man and his daughter was something else entirely. Something that felt dangerously close to mattering. She walked home through streets turning amber with sunset, and for the first time since accepting Vincent's offer, she felt the weight of consequences she couldn't yet predict. Friday arrived with October crispness, leaves turning gold and crimson along Chicago's tree-lined streets. Leah stood outside Vincent's townhouse in a neighborhood where old money whispered rather than shouted. The building was elegant red brick with iron railings and window boxes that someone tended with care. She pressed the doorbell, smoothing her simple navy dress. This was just dinner, she reminded herself. Professional courtesy extended to include a lonely child. Nothing more. Vincent answered. And for a moment, Leah forgot how to breathe. He wore dark slacks and a charcoal sweater instead of his usual suits, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. Human, almost. "Miss Cortez, come in." He stepped aside, and she entered a home that managed to be both luxurious and lived in. Photographs lined the hallway. Grace at various ages, Vincent with a beautiful dark-haired woman who had to be Elena. Family moments frozen in silver frames. "Leah!" Grace bounded down the stairs, wearing a yellow dress with a bow. "You came. Daddy said you might be too busy, but I knew you'd come. Of course I came. You invited me." Leah found herself smiling genuinely as Grace grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the dining room. Dinner was surprisingly informal. Vincent had ordered Italian from a restaurant Leah recognized as one of his, and they ate at a table set for 3. Grace dominated conversation with 8-year-old enthusiasm, talking about school, her art class, a boy named Jeremy who put gum in Melissa's hair. And Miss Peterson said that art doesn't have rules, so I painted the sky purple instead of blue. And Jeremy said that was wrong. But Miss Peterson said creativity means trying new things. Grace paused for breath, tomato sauce on her chin. "What's your favorite color, Leah?" "Green, like summer leaves. Daddy's is blue. Mama's was yellow like sunshine." Grace said it matter-of-factly. No sadness, just a child stating truth. "Do you have a mama?" Vincent tensed slightly, but Leah answered honestly. "I did, but she left when I was young. I mostly raised myself and my brother." "That's sad." Grace considered this seriously. "But you did a good job, because you're really nice." Something warm expanded in Leah's chest. When had a child's approval started mattering so much? After dinner, they moved to the living room. Grace insisted on showing Leah her drawings, pulling out a portfolio bursting with crayon creations. Vincent sat in an armchair, watching them with an expression that made Leah's skin feel too warm. "This one's my house, and that's Daddy, and that's Mrs. Morrison, and this one is the park." Grace pointed to each element. "I haven't drawn you yet, but I will now that I know you. I'd be honored." Leah studied a particularly elaborate drawing of a castle. "You're talented, Grace." By 8:30, Grace was yawning despite her protests. Vincent carried her upstairs, and Leah heard his low voice reading a story, Grace's sleepy questions fading into silence. When he returned, the atmosphere shifted. Just the two of them now, no child as buffer. "Coffee?" Vincent offered. "Please." He moved to the kitchen with easy familiarity, returning with 2 cups. They sat on opposite ends of the couch, careful distance maintained. "Grace adores you already," Vincent said. "She's been talking about tonight all week. She's wonderful. You're doing an amazing job with her. Sometimes I'm not sure. Elena was the heart of everything. I'm just trying not to fail at what she left behind." He stared into his coffee. "Grace asks about her mother. Wants to know if she's watching from heaven, if she'd be proud. I tell her yes. Always yes. Because what else can I say?" Leah had never seen him this unguarded. "You tell her the truth. That Elena loved her and would be proud of who she's becoming. That's enough." "Is it?" Vincent looked at her directly. "You grew up without a mother. Was it enough when people told you she probably had her reasons?" "No," Leah admitted. "But that's different. Elena didn't choose to leave. My mother did. Grace will understand that difference when she's older." Silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable but charged. Leah set down her cup, suddenly aware of how close they were sitting. "I should go. It's late. Let me drive you." Vincent stood when she did, and they walked to the foyer. He helped her with her coat, hands lingering on her shoulders. "Thank you for coming. It meant a lot to Grace. To both of us. Thank you for having me." Leah turned and found herself inches from him. She could see gold flecks in his blue eyes, the faint scar above his left eyebrow. Vincent raised his hand slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he brushed a strand of hair from her face. "I should keep distance. You work for me, but I can't stop thinking about you." "I know." Her voice came out whisper soft. "I can't either." He leaned in, and Leah's heart hammered against her ribs. His breath was warm against her lips, coffee and something darker. The moment stretched, infinite and fragile. Then Vincent stepped back, jaw tight. "Not like this. You deserve better than me stealing kisses in a hallway. You deserve to be courted properly. Leah felt dizzy with want and frustration. What if I don't want proper? Then you'll have to convince me you're sure. His smile was strained. Because once I start, Leah, I won't want to stop. And your life will change in ways you might not be ready for. My life already changed when I accepted your offer. Not like this. Not if you're mine. He said it with finality that was both promise and warning. The drive to her apartment was silent, tension thick enough to choke on. When they arrived, Vincent walked her to her door like some old-fashioned suitor. Dinner again next Friday? He asked. Grace will insist, but I'm asking for myself, too. Yes. Leah didn't trust herself to say more. He kissed her hand, lips barely brushing her knuckles, and the simple gesture sent electricity up her arm. Then he was gone, leaving her trembling in her doorway. Over the following weeks, a pattern emerged. Leah managed Vincent's businesses with increasing authority, profits climbing as waste decreased. She renegotiated supplier contracts, reorganized staffing, turned struggling operations into profitable ones. Vincent gave her complete freedom, trusting her judgment, consulting her on decisions that surprised them both with their intimacy. Friday dinners became routine. Grace bloomed under the attention, talking endlessly, drawing pictures for Leah, asking when she'd visit again. The child's affection was uncomplicated and absolute, and Leah found herself looking forward to those evenings with dangerous intensity. But the tension between her and Vincent grew unbearable. Touches that lasted too long when passing papers, gazes that lingered, conversations that drifted from business to personal, late nights in the office when everyone else had gone home. 5 weeks after that first dinner, Vincent closed the office door and faced her directly. I need to know if you feel this too, or if I'm imagining it. Leah's pulse raced. You're not imagining it. Then we need to decide what we're doing. Because I want more than stolen moments and professional distance. He crossed to her, deliberate and slow. I want to take you to dinner, just us. I want to know everything about you. I want to do this right. And Grace? Grace already loves you. That's not the question. He stopped inches away. The question is whether you're ready to be with someone like me. To enter this world fully. Leah thought of her tiny apartment. Her history of being called trouble. The years of struggle. She thought of Grace's laughter, Vincent's rare smiles, the way belonging to something felt for the first time in her life. I'm ready, she said. Vincent cupped her face in both hands, thumbs tracing her cheekbones. Then let me do this properly. Let me court you the way you deserve. When do we start? Now. He smiled, genuine and warm. Have dinner with me tomorrow. Somewhere nice. Just us. Yes. He kissed her then, finally, and it was everything Leah had imagined and more. Gentle at first, then deeper as her hands fisted in his sweater. Years of loneliness and need poured into that kiss, both of them drowning in it. When they broke apart, Vincent rested his forehead against hers. I should take you home. You should. Neither moved. Tomorrow, he promised. I'll pick you up at 7. Leah floated home, her lips still burning, her heart racing with possibilities and fear in equal measure. She was falling for Vincent Kane, and there would be no going back from this. Vincent courted Leah with the same focused intensity he applied to everything else in his life. Over the next 6 weeks, he took her to intimate restaurants where waiters knew to give them privacy, sent flowers that weren't generic roses, but the white lilies she'd mentioned loving once in passing, remembered details about her life that even Tommy forgot. He was attentive without being possessive, generous without making her feel bought. When Leah mentioned missing the coffee shop near her old apartment, he showed up the next morning with 2 cups from that exact place. When she worked late reviewing quarterly reports, he appeared with dinner and sat reading while she finished, just keeping her company. On their 4th date, he took her to a jazz club tucked into a basement on the south side. The music was smoky and intimate, and Vincent's hand stayed warm on the small of her back as they danced. I haven't done this in years, he admitted, pulling her closer. Elena and I used to come here when we were young, before Grace, before everything got complicated. Leah stiffened slightly. Does it bother you? Being here with me instead? No. His response was immediate and certain. Elena would want me to be happy again. She made me promise at the end that I wouldn't lock myself away forever. His jaw tightened. Took me 3 years to believe I deserved to try. What changed? You walked into my life. He spun her gently, then brought her back against him. You reminded me what it felt like to want something beyond duty and survival. During the 6th week, Vincent formally introduced Leah to his inner circle at a private dinner. Sal was already familiar, warm and approving. The 4 capos who ran different aspects of the organization regarded her with varying degrees of curiosity and respect. "Gentlemen," Vincent said as they gathered around the table, "this is Leah Cortez. She's my girlfriend and someone important to me. Treat her accordingly." The weight of those words settled over the room. In Vincent's world, such declarations carried implications beyond romance. Leah was now under his protection, which made her untouchable to rivals and precious to allies. After dinner, Sal pulled her aside. "He's different with you. Lighter. Haven't seen him like this since before Elena got sick. I'm not trying to replace her," Leah said quickly. "No one could. But you're giving him something new. Something he needs. That's enough." Sal squeezed her shoulder. "Welcome to the family, Leah." Grace noticed the shift immediately when Leah arrived for Friday dinner. She bounced on her toes, grinning conspiratorially. "Are you Daddy's girlfriend now? Like, for real?" Leah glanced at Vincent, who watched with barely concealed amusement. "Yes, if that's okay with you." Grace launched herself at Leah, hugging her waist fiercely. "I wished for this. On my birthday candles and on stars and on dandelions. I wished so hard." Vincent's expression softened into something that made Leah's chest ache. This wasn't just about them anymore. It was about Grace. About building something that honored what came before, while creating space for what might come next. That night, after Grace fell asleep during a movie, Vincent carried his daughter upstairs. When he returned, he sat beside Leah on the couch, closer than before. "She's never been this attached to anyone since Elena died," he said quietly. "Babysitters come and go. Teachers are temporary. But you, she talks about you constantly. She's easy to love." Leah traced the pattern on the couch cushion between them. "You both are." Vincent turned to face her fully, one hand coming up to cup her cheek. "I need you to understand what this means, being with me. It's not just dinners and flowers. My world has darkness in it. Danger. People will judge you for choosing me. People have been judging me my whole life." Leah leaned into his touch. "Let them talk." Leah. Her name was a prayer and a warning. "Once this goes further, there's no easy way back. You'll be known as mine. That comes with protection, but also scrutiny." "I know." She covered his hand with hers. "I'm choosing this with my eyes open, Vincent." He kissed her then, deep and claiming, pulling her into his lap. Leah went willingly, her hands in his hair, his wrapped around her waist. The kiss turned heated, desperate. Weeks of restrained want finally breaking through. "Stay," Vincent murmured against her lips. "Grace is asleep. Stay with me tonight." They moved to his bedroom, and what happened there was tender and fierce in turns. Vincent was careful with her, reverent, but there was passion beneath the gentleness. Leah gave herself to him completely, all her walls finally crumbling. Afterward, lying tangled in his sheets, Vincent traced the small scar above her eyebrow. "Tell me." "I was 7. Tommy was 3 and crying because he was hungry. Our mother was passed out somewhere, high on whatever she could afford that week. I tried to make macaroni, burned myself on the pot, hit my head on the cabinet door." Leah's voice was matter-of-fact, old pain smoothed by years. "I learned to cook better after that. Had to." Vincent's arms tightened around her. "You were 7 years old. Someone had to take care of him. Our mother checked out long before she physically left when I turned 16. Leah shrugged. "Tommy's been my responsibility since I can remember. That's why his debts, his problems, they always became mine. Not anymore." Vincent kissed the scar gently. "Now you have me to share the burden. That's not why I'm with you. I know, but it's still true." They fell asleep wrapped around each other, and Leah woke to morning sunlight and the sound of Grace's voice in the hallway. She panicked briefly, but Vincent simply pulled on sweatpants and went to intercept his daughter, giving Leah time to dress. At breakfast, Grace seemed utterly unfazed by Leah's presence. "Are you staying over now?" "Mrs. Morrison stays over sometimes when Daddy has late meetings." "Sometimes," Leah agreed, catching Vincent's amused glance. The following week settled into a rhythm that felt like family. Leah spent 5 or 6 nights a week at Vincent's house. Though she kept her apartment out of principle, she needed to maintain some independence, some proof that she could stand alone if necessary. Tommy thrived in his restaurant work, earning a promotion to line cook. He started dating Maria, one of the servers, a sweet girl with dark eyes and an easy laugh. Seeing her brother stable and happy eased something in Leah that had been tense for years. Then came the complication. Leah was reviewing invoices at the office when gossip reached her through the assistant manager at Marcello's. The loan sharks Vincent had paid off months ago were making noise around the neighborhood, calling her names that made Leah's blood boil. They couldn't touch her directly, not with Vincent's protection, but they could run their mouths. Tommy heard the rumors and snapped. He confronted one of them outside a bar, and fists flew. When Leah got the call that her brother was in lockup for assault, her stomach dropped. Vincent handled it with terrifying efficiency. Tommy was released within 2 hours. Charges mysteriously dropped. But Vincent's solution to the loan sharks was unexpected. "I'm paying them to leave Chicago," he told Leah that evening. $20,000 each. They take the money and disappear, or they refuse and face consequences they won't enjoy. "You're paying them?" Leah couldn't hide her surprise. The Vincent Kane I met 3 months ago would have just eliminated the problem. The Vincent Kane from 3 months ago didn't have you questioning his methods. His smile was wry. "You've made me reconsider the value of strategic generosity over brute force. I'm changing you. For the better, I hope." Leah stepped into his arms, relief and affection flooding through her. "Thank you for protecting Tommy." Again, he's family now. That means something. But later that night, alone in Vincent's study while he put Grace to bed, Leah had to address her growing concern. When he returned, she was standing by the window, arms crossed. "I need you to promise me something," she said without turning. "I'm grateful for everything you do, how you take care of Tommy and protect me, but I can't be helpless. I can't be someone who hides behind you for every problem." Vincent came to stand behind her, not touching, but close. "What are you asking for?" "Space to be strong on my own. Trust that I can handle things. I don't want to be rescued constantly. I want to be your partner, not your dependent." He was quiet for a long moment. Then his hands settled on her shoulders, gentle but grounding. "You've always been strong, Leah. The strongest person I know. I'm not trying to diminish that. I'm trying to remove obstacles so you can shine without fear." She turned in his arms. "I know your intentions are good, but I need to maintain my own identity in this relationship. Can you understand that?" "I can." He kissed her forehead. "And I'll do better about stepping back when you don't need me to step in." "I always need you," Leah corrected softly. "Just not to fix everything." "Fair enough." They sealed the understanding with a kiss that turned into more. And later, tangled in his bed again, Leah felt the foundation of their relationship solidify into something unshakable. 3 months into their official relationship, Leah's life had transformed in ways that still surprised her. She woke most mornings in Vincent's bed, had breakfast with Grace before school, then spent her days managing businesses that flourished under her direction. The profits from the legitimate operations had increased 40% since she'd taken over, and Vincent consulted her on decisions that extended beyond just the legal enterprises. Grace had woven Leah into her life completely. She wanted Leah at school events, needed help with homework, asked for Leah's opinion on everything from what to wear to whether unicorns could be real if people believed hard enough. The love was pure and uncomplicated, and Leah found herself fiercely protective of this little girl who'd lost her mother too young. But underneath the contentment, anxiety gnawed at Leah. She'd moved most of her belongings to Vincent's house but kept her apartment lease current. The financial dependence bothered her more than she'd admitted. Yes, she earned a good salary, but she lived in Vincent's home, ate food he provided, existed in a world he controlled. One evening after Grace went to bed, Leah raised the subject. They sat in Vincent's study, him reviewing contracts while she pretended to read. "I need to talk about something that's been bothering me." She set down her book. "I love what we've built, but I'm worried about losing myself in it." "In you." Vincent looked up, full attention immediately on her. "Explain. I don't want to be just your girlfriend or Grace's almost stepmother or the woman who runs your legitimate businesses. I need my own identity, something that's completely mine." Leah struggled to articulate the restlessness. "Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense." He closed his laptop. "What do you need?" "I've been thinking about starting a consulting business, helping other small businesses in the neighborhood with management, finances, operations. There are so many struggling shops that just need someone to show them how to be profitable." Her words came faster, excited. "I could build something separate from your empire, something that's mine." Vincent smiled, slow and warm. "I think that's brilliant." "You do?" "Leah, you've made me hundreds of thousands in a few months. You have a gift for this." He stood, coming around the desk to pull her up into his arms. "I'll front you the capital to start. You pay me back from profits, keep the rest. The business is yours. Completely. You'd do that?" Her voice wavered with emotion. "I'd do anything for you. You know that." He kissed her temple. "Besides, I trust you with my daughter. A business is nothing." Over the next month, Leah threw herself into building her consultancy. She rented a small office 2 blocks from her old apartment, hired an assistant, and started reaching out to struggling businesses in Little Italy. Word spread quickly that Vincent Kane's girlfriend was offering legitimate help, and clients came steadily. Tommy continued to impress everyone, earning another promotion to sous chef. His relationship with Maria had grown serious, and Leah often joined them for double dates with Vincent. Watching her brother happy and stable filled her with profound relief. Then Connor Blake walked back into her life. It happened at a community charity event Leah attended to network for her consultancy. She was discussing inventory systems with a bakery owner when a voice behind her said, "Leah Cortez? I thought that was you." She turned to find a man in his early 30s, handsome in a conventional way, with brown hair and an easy smile. He looked vaguely familiar. "Connor Blake," he supplied, extending his hand. "We met years ago at that coffee shop on Ashland Avenue. You used to make the best cappuccinos." Memory clicked. Connor had been a regular customer, always friendly, always lingering to chat. She'd been 23 and too exhausted from working 3 jobs to notice if he'd been flirting. "Connor." "Right. Construction business?" She shook his hand briefly. "Development now, actually. I've done well." His smile widened. "You look amazing. Even better than I remember." Warning bells rang faintly, but Leah dismissed them. This was just a guy from her past, nothing threatening. "Thank you. I'm doing consulting work now, business management." "Really?" "That's perfect timing. I'm developing a mixed-use property in Pilsen and could use someone to help structure the retail leases." He pulled out a business card. "Would you be interested in discussing it over dinner?" "I'd need to see the project details first," Leah said carefully. "And I'm seeing someone, so dinner would need to be strictly professional." Of course. Connor's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes suggested he'd heard what he wanted. "I'll email you the information. Looking forward to working together, Leah." She thought nothing more of it until flowers arrived at her office 2 days later. White roses with a card. "Looking forward to our collaboration." The roses bothered her because Vincent sent lilies. Knew her preferences. These felt presumptuous. Then Connor started appearing places. At the coffee shop near her office, claiming coincidence. At another community event, positioning himself near her. His emails about the supposed development project were frequent and included personal questions that had nothing to do with business. Leah mentioned it casually to Vincent one evening. His reaction was immediate and visceral. "What's his full name?" Vincent's voice went cold, in a way she rarely heard directed anywhere near her. "Connor Blake. He's just some guy I knew years ago, Vincent. He's harmless. No man sends flowers and engineers coincidental meetings with a woman who's told him she's taken unless he's testing boundaries." Vincent pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. "I'll have Sal look into him." "That's not necessary." Leah felt her independence slipping. "I can handle an overeager client." "Leah, in my world, Another man pursuing what's mine is a direct challenge. It requires a response. I'm not a possession to be defended. Frustration crept into her voice. Vincent's jaw tightened. That's not what I meant, but you need to understand the rules of this life. Other men see you with me, they know what it means. If Blake is pushing anyway, either he's dangerously ignorant or deliberately disrespectful. Over the next week, tension built. Connor continued his pursuit, oblivious or uncaring about the danger he was courting. Vincent assigned additional security to follow Leah, which made her feel suffocated. When she confronted him about it, their first serious fight erupted. You're treating me like I can't take care of myself. Leah's voice rose, something that rarely happened. They were in his study, Grace safely asleep upstairs. I'm treating you like someone I love who's being targeted by a man who won't take no for an answer. Vincent's control was fraying. Do you have any idea what men in rival organizations would do if they thought you were vulnerable? Blake's civilian, but the principle is the same. So I'm supposed to hide behind you forever? Never interact with the world without your permission? That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying, Vincent? Leah grabbed her jacket. Because right now it feels like I'm suffocating. She left, returning to her apartment for the first time in weeks. The space felt foreign now. Too small, empty without Vincent and Grace. But she needed to prove she could still exist independently. Vincent didn't call, respecting her need for space despite how much it clearly cost him. But the next afternoon, Grace appeared at Leah's office with Mrs. Morrison, the older woman looking apologetic. She insisted, Mrs. Morrison explained. Said she needed to see you. Grace's eyes were red-rimmed. Are you leaving? Like Mama left? The question shattered Leah's heart. She crouched down, pulling the little girl into a fierce hug. No, baby. No. Your mama didn't choose to go. She got sick. That's completely different. But you and Daddy were fighting. Mrs. Morrison said you needed space, and that's what grown-ups say before they leave forever. Grace's voice broke on a sob. Leah looked at Mrs. Morrison helplessly, then back at Grace. Your daddy and I had a disagreement. That's normal. People who love each other sometimes disagree. But it doesn't mean we stop loving each other. Promise? Grace's small hands clutched Leah's shirt. I promise. I'm not going anywhere. That evening, Vincent appeared at her door. He looked exhausted, hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. Grace told me she came to see you. He leaned against the doorframe. I didn't send her, but I'm glad she went. She said what I should have. Vincent, let me finish. He stepped inside, closing the door. You're right. I was being controlling. Not because I don't trust you, but because I'm terrified of losing you. Elena's death taught me how quickly everything can be taken away, but that's my fear to manage, not yours to accommodate. Leah felt tears prick her eyes. I'm scared too. Scared of disappearing into being Vincent Kane's girlfriend instead of Leah Cortez. I need to know I can still stand on my own. Then we figure out how to do both. You maintain your independence, and I learn to trust that you can handle your own battles. He pulled her into his arms. But Leah, you have to understand that in my world, threats are real. I can't apologize for wanting you protected. I know. And I'll try to understand your world better. She tilted her face up to his. We'll find a balance. They kissed, and it felt like coming home after being lost. That night, they talked until dawn, establishing boundaries and rules that honored both their needs. Vincent would trust her to handle situations unless she asked for help. Leah would be more aware of how her actions appeared in his world. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And for now, that was enough. Their reconciliation brought a deeper understanding to the relationship. Vincent made conscious efforts to step back, consulting Leah before acting on protective impulses. Leah worked to communicate when situations made her uncomfortable. Trusting Vincent's experience in his world, the Connor Blake situation resolved itself through unexpected diplomacy. Sal arranged a quiet meeting with Connor, explained exactly who Vincent Kane was and what Leah meant to him, and gave the man a choice. Accept a generous payment to abandon his development project and move his business interests elsewhere, or face consequences that wouldn't be pleasant. Connor, suddenly understanding the gravity of his mistake, took the money and disappeared from Chicago within a week. Leah appreciated that Vincent had chosen conversation and compensation over violence, seeing it as growth. 2 months passed in relative peace. Leah's consultancy thrived, with a waiting list of clients seeking her expertise. She'd helped save 3 businesses from bankruptcy and doubled revenues for 2 others. The work was satisfying in ways that went beyond profit, giving her identity and purpose separate from Vincent. Grace flourished. Her school reports glowed with praise, and she'd started calling their Friday dinners family night, a phrase that made Leah's chest ache with belonging. The girl had taken to drawing elaborate pictures of the 3 of them together, each one displayed proudly on Vincent's refrigerator. Tommy and Maria got engaged in early spring, a simple proposal at the restaurant where they'd met. Watching her brother down on one knee, happy and stable, Leah cried with relief and joy. Vincent stood beside her, hand warm on her lower back, and she realized they'd built something remarkable together. It was nearly 10 months since that night in the alley when Vincent had first intervened in her life. 10 months that had transformed everything. Vincent had been planning for weeks, consulting with Grace, who'd drawn increasingly elaborate sketches of what she thought Leah's ring should look like. He'd taken the drawings to a jeweler he'd known for decades, a man who'd crafted Elena's ring years ago. "I want something new," Vincent had explained. "Something that honors Grace's vision, but reflects Leah's strength and grace." The result was a platinum band with a single flawless diamond, surrounded by smaller stones arranged in a pattern that echoed Grace's drawing of stars and hearts. It was elegant without being ostentatious, perfect for Leah's understated style. Vincent planned to propose at Marcello's on a Friday evening, arranging for the restaurant's private rooftop space with views of Chicago's skyline. He'd invite just Leah, let her think it was a simple date night. But the night before his planned proposal, Connor Blake reappeared. Leah was closing her office around 7 when Connor walked in, looking nervous and contrite. Her security guard, one of Vincent's men who maintained discreet distance, immediately moved closer. "Connor." Leah kept her desk between them. "I thought you'd left Chicago." "I did. I'm leaving again tomorrow, permanently this time, moving to Seattle." He held up his hands in a placating gesture. "I just wanted to apologize in person before I go. What I did, pursuing you like that, I didn't understand who Kane was or what I was risking. For you, or for myself. Apology accepted." Leah remained standing, professional. "I hope Seattle treats you well. There's one more thing." Connor pulled out a folder. "That development project I mentioned? It's real, and it's a good opportunity. I know you can't work with me now, but I wanted to offer it to you anyway. No strings, no expectations. You're talented, Leah. You deserve opportunities like this." He set the folder on her desk and backed toward the door. "I really am sorry. I hope you're happy with Kane. From what I've learned about him these past months, he's a lucky man." Connor left before Leah could respond. She opened the folder curiously and found legitimate business plans for a mixed-use development in Pilsen, with a proposal for her consultancy to manage the retail structuring. The fee offered was substantial, and the project was exactly the kind of high-profile work that could establish her reputation beyond Little Italy. That evening at Vincent's house, she mentioned Connor's visit over dinner. Grace was absorbed in her pasta, but Vincent's attention sharpened immediately. "He came to your office?" His voice was carefully controlled. "To apologize and offer a business opportunity. Real one this time." Leah showed him the folder. "He's moving to Seattle, leaving permanently. I think Sal scared him straight." Vincent reviewed the documents, expression unreadable. "This is a good opportunity." "I know, but it would mean working with someone who disrespected our relationship, even if he didn't understand the context." Leah studied Vincent's face. "What do you think?" "I think the project is legitimate and professionally valuable. I also think Connor Blake finally learned a lesson about respecting boundaries." Vincent closed the folder. "If you want to take it, I support you. He'll be in Seattle dealing with you remotely. And Sal's made very clear what happens if Blake ever crosses a line again. You're okay with this?" Leah needed to be certain. "I trust you completely. That's what we agreed, remember? You handle your business, I handle mine. And we trust each other in between." He smiled. "Besides, I like that you're successful enough that opportunities like this come to you." Grace piped up through a mouthful of pasta. What's an opportunity? A chance to do something good, Leah explained, reaching over to wipe sauce from Grace's chin. Like when Daddy met you? Miss Peterson says that was an opportunity for good things. Vincent and Leah exchanged glances, both fighting smiles. Exactly like that, sweetheart. The next evening, Vincent told Leah he'd reserved the rooftop at Marcello's for a private dinner. Just us. I want to celebrate your success with the consultancy. Leah dressed carefully in a deep green dress that Vincent loved, twisted her hair into an elegant knot, and tried to ignore the flutter of anticipation in her stomach. Something about tonight felt significant, though she couldn't pinpoint why. Marcello's rooftop had been transformed. String lights created a canopy of gold, a single table set for two overlooking the city lights. Soft jazz played from hidden speakers, and candles flickered in the spring breeze. Vincent, this is beautiful. Leah turned to him, finding his expression tender and nervous in equal measure. They ate slowly, conversation flowing easily through courses. Vincent asked about her newest client, a bakery struggling with supply chain issues. Leah asked about Grace's upcoming school recital. They talked about Tommy's wedding plans, about whether to take a trip together that summer. As dessert was cleared away, Vincent stood and extended his hand. Dance with me. They swayed together under the lights, Chicago spreading beneath them in all its chaotic glory. Leah rested her head on Vincent's shoulder, feeling profoundly content. I need to tell you something, Vincent said quietly. When Elena died, I thought that was it for me. One great love in a lifetime. And I'd had mine. I'd focus on Grace and the business, and accept that some part of me died with my wife. Leah lifted her head, meeting his eyes. Then you walked into my life. Or rather, I walked into yours in that alley. His smile was soft. You were so fierce, so brave, facing down men who could have hurt you badly. And you did it to protect your brother. Because that's who you are. Someone who loves fiercely, and stands strong even when afraid. Vincent, let me finish. He stepped back slightly, and Leah's breath caught as he lowered himself to one knee. You brought light back into my life when I'd accepted darkness. You made Grace laugh again, really laugh. You made me want to be better, to choose strategy over violence, to build something real instead of just maintaining an empire. He pulled a small box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a ring that sparkled with starlight and promise. Leah Cortez, you are my answered prayer. The question I didn't know I was asking. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down Leah's face. She saw her whole life in that moment, all the struggle and survival and being called trouble. And she saw what Vincent offered. Partnership, family, belonging. Yes. The word came out choked with emotion. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Vincent stood, sliding the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, and kissed her like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. Leah kissed him back, tasting salt from her own tears, feeling 10 months of falling in love culminate in this perfect moment. When they broke apart, she examined the ring more closely and laughed through her tears. Grace helped design this, didn't she? She had very strong opinions about stars and hearts. Vincent grinned. I hope that's okay. It's perfect. Everything is perfect. Leah kissed him again, softer this time. When do we tell her? Tomorrow morning. I wanted tonight to be just us first. His arms tightened around her, but she's going to lose her mind with excitement. They stayed on the rooftop until late, talking about futures and possibilities, wedding plans and whether they wanted more children, how to blend their lives even more completely than they already had. As Vincent drove them home, Leah looked at the ring sparkling on her hand and thought about the journey that brought her here. From that scared woman in an alley to this moment of pure happiness, Vincent Kane had transformed her world. What are you thinking? Vincent asked, glancing at her at a red light. That everyone in this city called me trouble. Leah smiled. But you called me yours, and that made all the difference. Grace's reaction to the engagement exceeded even Vincent's expectations. When they told her over Saturday morning pancakes, she screamed with joy so loudly that Mrs. Morrison came running from the kitchen thinking someone was hurt. I knew it. I knew you'd marry Daddy. Grace bounced in her chair, syrup forgotten. Can I be in the wedding? Can I wear a princess dress? Can I help plan everything? You can absolutely help, Leah assured her, laughing. I need your artistic expertise. Over the following weeks, Grace threw herself into wedding planning with 8-year-old enthusiasm. She drew elaborate sketches of flower arrangements, debated the merits of chocolate versus vanilla cake with the seriousness of a Supreme Court justice, and practiced walking slowly while holding an imaginary bouquet. Leah wanted the wedding to honor both Vincent's Italian heritage and her own Latina roots. They settled on a ceremony that would blend traditions, a celebration of two families becoming one. The guest list grew to include not just Vincent's organization, but the entire Little Italy community, shopkeepers and neighbors who'd watched Leah transform from that trouble girl to Vincent Kane's beloved. 3 weeks before the wedding, the whispers started. Leah first noticed them at the butcher shop, where she'd stopped to discuss catering. The owner's wife, usually friendly, was cold and dismissive. At the bakery the next day, 2 women stopped talking abruptly when Leah entered, their expressions judgmental. By the end of the week, Leah understood. Someone had been spreading rumors that she was only marrying Vincent for money and status, that she'd manipulated her way into his life and Grace's affection. The gossip suggested she'd never truly loved him, that she was using a grieving widower and his vulnerable daughter. Most of the neighborhood dismissed such talk, knowing Leah's character. But some of the old guard Italian families, traditional and suspicious of outsiders, repeated the rumors with relish. A few of Vincent's older capos made subtle comments about opportunistic women that clearly referred to her. Leah tried to ignore it, but the whispers accumulated like small cuts, each one individually bearable but collectively painful. She'd spent her whole life being judged, being called trouble, and she'd thought that was finally behind her. This felt like falling backward into old wounds. Vincent noticed her withdrawal. "What's wrong?" he asked one evening after Grace was asleep. "Nothing. Just wedding stress." Leah forced a smile. "Don't lie to me." He turned her to face him. "Talk to me." So she told him about the rumors, the whispers, the judgment. Vincent's expression went dangerously cold, the same look he got before handling threats to his organization. "Give me names. I'll address this immediately." "No." Leah grabbed his arm. "That's not the solution. You can't threaten people into respecting me. I can make them afraid to disrespect you. Vincent, that's not who I want to be. The woman whose husband scares people into silence." She sat heavily on the couch. "I just thought I'd finally escaped being seen as trouble. Turns out some people will always see me that way." Vincent sat beside her, pulling her close. "Anyone who matters knows the truth. The rest is just noise. Easy for you to say. You've never had to prove your worth to this neighborhood. You're right. I haven't." He kissed her temple. "But I know this. You've proven yourself 100 times over. To Grace, to me, to everyone whose life you've improved. Let them whisper. We know what's real." The next day, Vincent gathered his capos and made his position brutally clear. Anyone questioning Leah's character was questioning his judgment, and he wouldn't tolerate it. The message rippled through the organization, and the whispers from that quarter stopped immediately. But the civilian gossip continued, and there was nothing Vincent could do about that without making things worse. Grace inadvertently heard the rumors at school. A classmate named Sophia, whose parents were part of the old guard Italian community, repeated what she'd heard at home. "My mommy said your new mommy is only marrying your daddy for his money and doesn't really love you." Grace came home in tears, devastating both Vincent and Leah. Leah held the sobbing child, fury and heartbreak warring in her chest. "Sweetheart, look at me." Leah tilted Grace's chin up gently. "Do you know what jealousy is?" Grace sniffled. "When you want something someone else has?" "Exactly. Some people are jealous because your daddy and I are happy, and they don't understand how to be happy themselves. So they say mean things to try to make us feel bad too." Leah wiped Grace's tears. "But nothing they say changes the truth. I love your daddy more than anything, and I love you just as much. That's real, no matter what Sophia or anyone else says. Promise?" Grace's voice was small. "I promise. Cross my heart." Leah hugged her fiercely. "You're my girl, Grace. Nothing changes that." After Grace finally calmed and went to play in her room, Leah sat on the couch, emotionally exhausted. Vincent joined her, and they sat in silence for a long moment. "This is my fault," Vincent said quietly. "If you'd chosen a normal man, a civilian, you wouldn't face this scrutiny. If I'd chosen someone else, I wouldn't have you or Grace." Leah took his hand. "I'm not having regrets, Vincent. I'm just tired of always being judged. You won't always be. Once we're married, once you're officially part of this family, the talk will die down. People will accept it because they'll have no choice. I don't want acceptance through intimidation. Sometimes that's the only language certain people understand." Vincent's expression hardened. "But you're right that we can't force respect. We can only live our truth and let it speak for itself." The night before the wedding, tradition dictated they spend apart. Leah stayed at a hotel with Maria and 2 friends from her consultancy, while Vincent remained home with Tommy, Sal, and his closest men. In the hotel room, Grace was practically vibrating with excitement, trying on her pink dress for the 100th time. "Do you think everyone will cry at the wedding? Mrs. Morrison says weddings always make her cry." "Probably," Leah admitted, already feeling emotional. After Grace finally fell asleep, curled up in the hotel bed beside Leah, Tommy pulled his sister aside for a private conversation on the balcony. "I never thought I'd see this," Tommy said, emotion thick in his voice. "You happy? Actually happy, not just surviving." "Tommy, let me say this." He took her hands. "You raised me when you should have been living your own life. You worked yourself to exhaustion to keep me fed and in school. You covered for me when I screwed up, paid my debts, protected me from consequences I deserved." Tears streaked his face. "And I never thanked you properly. But Leah, you deserve this. You deserve Vincent and Grace, and a family that takes care of you for once. Don't let anyone make you doubt that." Leah hugged her brother tightly, both of them crying now. "I love you, Tommy. You were never a burden. You were my purpose when I didn't have anything else. Now you have everything, and I'm so damn grateful I get to see it." Across town, Vincent sat in his study with Sal, both nursing whiskey. Grace was asleep upstairs, and the house felt too quiet without Leah's presence. "You nervous?" Sal asked. "Terrified," Vincent admitted. "Not about marrying her. About whether I deserve this second chance. Elena would want this for you. You know that." "I do. But there's still guilt in moving forward, in being happy again." Vincent stared at the amber liquid in his glass. "Elena was my first love, my everything for so long. Leah is different. A new kind of love, but just as deep. Is it wrong to feel like I'm betraying one by choosing the other? You're not choosing one over the other. You're honoring Elena's memory by living the full life she wanted for you." Sal leaned forward. "She made you promise not to lock yourself away. Marrying Leah is keeping that promise." Vincent nodded slowly. "Leah brought me back to life. She made Grace smile again. She made me remember what it feels like to want more than just survival and duty. Then tomorrow, you marry her and don't look back." Sal raised his glass. "To second chances and the courage to take them." They drank, and Vincent felt the last of his hesitation fade. Tomorrow, he would marry Leah Cortez, and together they would build something that honored the past while embracing the future. In her hotel room, Leah lay awake long after everyone else slept, Grace's soft breathing beside her a comforting rhythm. She thought about the journey from that alley to this moment. All the fear and struggle, and finally, joy. Tomorrow she would become Leah Kane. Tomorrow she would officially join the family she'd already grown to love. And tomorrow, the whispers wouldn't matter anymore, because she'd have everything that did. She touched the ring on her finger, still getting used to its weight, and smiled in the darkness. Vincent had called her his answered prayer, but the truth was, they'd saved each other. 2 people who'd known loss and loneliness, finding home in unexpected places. Grace stirred beside her, murmuring, "Mama," in her sleep before settling again. The word pierced Leah's heart with sweet pain. She wasn't trying to replace Elena, would never presume to, but she could be something new. Something Grace needed now. Morning would come soon, bringing with it promises and forever. Leah closed her eyes, finally at peace with all of it. The past that shaped her, the present that fulfilled her, and the future that awaited. Saturday dawned clear and bright. May sunshine spilling through Chicago's streets like a benediction. Leah woke to Grace, already awake beside her, watching with solemn blue eyes. "Today you marry Daddy," Grace whispered, as if speaking too loudly might break the spell. "Today I marry Daddy," Leah confirmed, pulling the little girl close. The ceremony was scheduled for 4 p.m. at the historic church in Little Italy, the same one where Vincent had married Elena 9 years ago. Leah had wrestled with that decision, but Vincent insisted it was right. "That church is part of my family's history. Elena would want us to honor tradition, not avoid it out of misplaced guilt." By noon, the hotel room was controlled chaos. Maria helped Leah into her dress, a fitted ivory gown with delicate lace sleeves that honored both elegance and modesty. Her hair was swept into a soft updo, a few tendrils framing her face. She wore minimal jewelry, pearl earrings that had belonged to her grandmother, and the engagement ring that caught light like captured stars. Grace twirled in her pink dress with its sparkly bodice, the picture of childhood joy. "You look like a princess, Leah. Daddy's going to cry for sure." "You think so?" "Mrs. Morrison says Daddy never cries, but I think he will today. He loves you so much his eyes get all soft when he looks at you." Leah's own eyes grew misty. "I love him too, sweetheart. And I love you." "I know." Grace said it with such simple certainty that Leah had to laugh. The church was magnificent, decorated with white lilies and red roses, Italian and Latin music blending as guests arrived. The entire neighborhood seemed to have turned out, packing pews until people stood along the walls. Leah recognized faces from every shop and restaurant in Little Italy, people who'd whispered about her, and people who'd always believed in her. In the small room off the sanctuary, Tommy straightened his tie for the 10th time. "You ready for this?" "More than I've ever been ready for anything." Leah took his arm. "Thank you for being here, for walking me down the aisle, for being the family I needed all these years." "You were my family first," Tommy said roughly. "Everything good in my life came because you never gave up on me. I'm proud to walk you to your next chapter, sis." The music changed, and suddenly it was time. Leah stepped into the sanctuary, and everything else fell away except Vincent standing at the altar. He wore a perfectly tailored black suit, his dark hair combed back, eyes locked on her with such intensity that her breath caught. As she walked toward him on Tommy's arm, she saw his composure crack, saw his eyes shine with unshed tears. Grace had been right. When Tommy placed her hand in Vincent's, Leah felt the rightness of it settle into her bones. This man, this moment, this love, it was all exactly where she was meant to be. The priest began the ceremony, words about love and commitment washing over them. But when it came time for personal vows, Vincent's voice rang clear through the church. "Leah, when I met you, I was surviving but not living. I'd accepted that one great love was all I deserved, that the rest of my life would be duty and shadows." His hands tightened on hers. "You proved me wrong. You brought light when I'd forgotten what sunshine felt like. You made my daughter laugh again, really laugh. You made me want to be better, to choose wisdom over force, to build instead of just maintain." His voice roughened with emotion. "You are my answered prayer, the question I didn't know I was asking. I promise to honor you, to see you always as my equal and partner. I promise to support your dreams and celebrate your victories. I promise to love you fiercely and without reservation, today and all our tomorrows. You saved me, Leah. Let me spend my life being worthy of that gift." Tears streamed down Leah's face as she began her own vows. "Vincent, you saw me when the whole city called me trouble. You saw value when I'd stopped seeing it in myself. You gave me more than protection or security. You gave me family, belonging, home." She squeezed his hands. "I promise to love you and Grace with everything I have. I promise to be your partner in building the life we both deserve. I promise to stand beside you in strength, not behind you in fear. You gave me a place to belong after a lifetime of running. You gave me a daughter to love, and a man who makes me want to be brave. I was lost and you were the answer, now and always." The priest pronounced them husband and wife, and when Vincent kissed her, the church erupted in applause and cheers. Grace jumped up and down in the front pew, clapping so hard her hands must have hurt. The reception was held in a restored warehouse that Vincent's organization owned, transformed into something magical with flowers and lights and long tables laden with food. Italian and Mexican dishes sat side by side, music alternating between traditions, a perfect fusion of their joined families. During their first dance, Vincent held Leah close and whispered, "No regrets?" "Not a single one." She rested her head on his shoulder. "You? Only that I didn't find you sooner." After their dance, Grace insisted on dancing with both of them, giggling as Vincent lifted her and Leah held her hands, the three of them spinning together. The image of them, Leah knew, would be captured in dozens of photographs, evidence of the family they'd become. Tommy gave a toast that had everyone laughing and crying. "My sister raised me when she should have been living her own life. She sacrificed everything to keep me safe and fed and loved. Leah never complained, never made me feel like a burden, even when I was." He raised his glass toward Vincent. Vincent Kane saw what I always knew, that my sister is the strongest, most remarkable person you'll ever meet. He's a lucky man, and I'm grateful he's smart enough to know it. To Leah and Vincent, may your love be as fierce and loyal as my sister has always been. Sal's toast was shorter, but no less emotional. I've known Vincent since he was 20 years old. I watched him build an empire, survive impossible loss, and keep going for his daughter's sake. Today, I watched him come fully back to life. Leah, you've given him something priceless. Hope for the future. Welcome to the family, officially and forever. As evening deepened, Leah found herself surrounded by women from the neighborhood, the same ones who'd whispered about her weeks ago. Mrs. Ricci from the bakery took her hand. "We were wrong to listen to gossip. Anyone can see how you and Vincent love each other. You've made that little girl happier than she's been since her mama died. That's what matters." Others echoed similar sentiments, and Leah realized that living her truth had been more powerful than any defense could have been. The whispers hadn't disappeared because Vincent commanded it, but because the evidence of genuine love was undeniable. Late in the evening, Vincent pulled her away from the crowd to a quiet balcony overlooking the city. Chicago glittered beneath them, alive and endless. "Happy?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Deliriously, Leah leaned back against him. "I keep waiting to wake up, for this to be too good to be real. It's real. You're mine now, legally and forever. No takebacks." She laughed and turned in his arms. "You know what the strange thing is? Everyone spent so long calling me trouble, saying I brought problems wherever I went. But you called me your answered prayer. And somehow, that's what made all the difference. You were never trouble, Leah. You were just a woman carrying burdens alone, waiting for someone to see your strength instead of your struggles." Vincent kissed her softly. "I was the lucky one. I got to be the man who finally saw you clearly." They stayed on the balcony until Sal came to tell them Grace was falling asleep at the table, exhausted from excitement. They returned to find their daughter with her head pillowed on her arms, eyes drooping but fighting sleep. "Come on, sweetheart," Leah said gently. "Time for Mrs. Morrison to take you home." Grace roused enough to hug them both. "You're married now. For real forever. For real forever," Vincent confirmed. "Good. Because I love you both too much to share." 3 months later, life had settled into a rhythm that felt like contentment made solid. Leah moved her consultancy office into a larger space, her reputation spreading beyond Little Italy. She'd helped restructure Connor Blake's Seattle project remotely, the success leading to 3 more out-of-state clients. Her business was hers, thriving on her own merit. Tommy and Maria had married in a simple ceremony, and her brother was saving to open his own restaurant. The transformation from reckless boy to responsible man was complete, and Leah watched with fierce pride. Grace had adjusted beautifully to having Leah as a permanent fixture, calling her Leah still, but with a depth of affection that needed no labels. She'd started drawing their family with a new addition lately, a baby that she insisted was coming soon, which brought Leah to the present moment, standing in Vincent's home office where he was reviewing contracts, working up the nerve to share her news. "Vincent?" He looked up, instantly attentive. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." She crossed to him, perching on the edge of his desk. but I have something to tell you." His expression shifted to concern, hands coming to rest on her hips. "You're worrying me. Don't worry. It's good news. At least, I hope you'll think so." She took his hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. "I'm pregnant. About 8 weeks." Vincent stared at her, processing. Then his face broke into the widest smile she'd ever seen. "Pregnant. We're having a baby. We're having a baby." Leah laughed as he pulled her into his lap, kissing her breathless. "Grace will lose her mind," he said against her lips. "She's been drawing a baby into our family portraits for weeks. I think she already knows somehow." That evening, they told Grace over dinner. Her shriek of joy was loud enough to make them wince, followed by a barrage of questions about names and whether it would be a boy or girl, and when could she teach the baby to draw. Later, after Grace finally went to bed still buzzing with excitement, Vincent and Leah stood in the kitchen cleaning up together, a domestic scene that would have seemed impossible a year ago. "A year ago, I was managing a cafe and dodging loan sharks," Leah mused. "Now I'm married to you, Grace's mother in everything but name, pregnant, and running a successful business. It feels like a dream. If it's a dream, I never want to wake up." Vincent dried the last dish and pulled her close. "You know what I realized today?" "What?" "The city called you trouble your whole life. They saw your struggles and judged you for them. But I saw something else from the beginning." He cupped her face tenderly. "I saw a woman who loved fiercely, who stood strong when she was terrified, who protected what mattered even when it cost her everything. I saw my answered prayer walking toward me in that alley, brave and beautiful and mine." Leah kissed him, pouring a year of love and gratitude into it. "I was lost, and you found me. That's all that matters." Outside, Chicago continued its endless rhythm. Inside, Vincent and Leah Kane stood in their kitchen, baby growing between them, daughter sleeping upstairs, future spreading out bright and infinite. The whispers had long since faded, replaced by respect and belonging. Leah had finally found her home, not in a place, but in the family she'd built with a man who saw past trouble to the treasure beneath. And for the first time in 27 years, she knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she belonged.